We are live. All right, guys. So we're gonna get started. Hello. We are back. It is the third Monday. And we're doing it just like we do it every month at 9 o'clock live. I do want to say hey and happy belated Father's Day to all the amazing fathers out there. For all who have stepped up and operated as fathers, happy belated Father's Day. So today I spent some time praying for y'all and just kind of trying my best amongst everyday life, trying to meditate on the word that God has given me for y'all. And so I'm just going to give it like it is, you know. It is literally going on 3 years since Married Sisters has begun. And it makes me emotional just thinking about it, because it has been a long journey from the time I started to now. It has been a long journey. I literally just found out I was pregnant at the time we started this. And I was going through one of the roughest times in my marriage. And I would say I was coming out of one of the roughest times in my marriage. And then a pandemic happened, a whole pandemic. And then from the time my son was born up until now, our home has just been raided with never-ending sickness. So when I look back over the course of almost 3 years, it's been quite a journey. And I'm just so thankful that God has allowed me to continue to be able to be here and just pour into y'all, pour into whosoever will listen and just heed to everything it is God has been saying to you through me for the past 2.5 years. I'm just thankful that God has entrusted me to do this, to speak on such a heavy matter, to speak on such a sacred union called marriage. I'm just honored tonight, and I just let God know that I'm just thankful that He has entrusted me. So here we are once again. Tonight we're going to be talking about vulnerability at its ugliest. That is the title of the session tonight. Have you ever heard the slogan, that is bougie at its finest? Or maybe I could have thought of a better one. But anyway, you've heard the saying or the cliche or whatever. Honey, that is ratchet at its finest, or something like that. Well, this is vulnerability at its ugliest. Because there's nothing fine and there's nothing cute about vulnerability. It's beautiful, but it gets ugly. But nonetheless, we have our outing coming up that we still have the plan. And if you'd like to be a part, let me know. Because I'm getting ready to put out some dates for that. And I also want to do an elegant night out for all the married sisters and their husbands for our 3-year anniversary. So I'm really excited about the things that God has in store for married sisters. And I just want to ask that y'all would just pray for me, that God would just continue to endow me with the strength to carry such a beautiful ministry like this. But nonetheless, so vulnerability is obviously many things. Vulnerability is many things, but what does it mean exactly for a relationship? Because vulnerability can be someone who is vulnerable, as in someone who is weak-minded, or someone who is, wearing their heart on their sleeve, or someone who is susceptible to hurt, or whatever the case may be. But vulnerable in terms of a relationship means something different. Vulnerability, and this is what a marriage and family therapist actually said. I just want to source them because this did not come from me. It's just a definition. But and if you want the website for this when we're done, just let me know. But anyway, vulnerability is when a person willingly takes the risk to reveal their emotions and weaknesses. They take the risk to reveal their emotions and their weaknesses. And I just literally could not have said it better myself. Because if you're not unveiling something that you're struggling with, you're unveiling something that you're suppressing emotionally, or not even suppressing, so to speak. You're unveiling something that that you're feeling within, something very deep within, something that is at your core. Something that's been burdening you. So I'm going to ask you guys a few questions, and I want you guys to get involved if you're watching, and help me answer these questions. So I would like to ask and get you guys' opinion on this, because I'm not the only one who has ran from being vulnerable before. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who have struggled with this at some point in their life, if not still do. Why do we run from being vulnerable is the question. Why do we run from being vulnerable? And maybe we could, maybe you run from being vulnerable for whatever reason from somebody else, but we want to focus on why we run from being vulnerable in our marriage, why we run from being vulnerable with our spouse. I would say this is probably one of the biggest reasons that we are just too ashamed. We're just too ashamed at whatever it may be that we could want to reveal to them. We're just ashamed of it. And it could be nothing that we've done, but maybe something that has happened to us, something that was done to us. But it very well be something that you've done, or something that you're struggling with that is so dark. Or maybe it's a ton of thoughts you're having that you just would ever hear yourself saying out loud, but you know that you should. Another reason will be we think they will be upset with how we feel or with what we're bringing to them. And that's a reason why we would run. One of the reasons why we would run from being vulnerable. Another reason why I say we would run from being vulnerable is we might feel like they think we shouldn't be struggling with what it is we're struggling with. I don't know if you guys have ever been there before, but that is a common one. We may feel like our spouse may think that we shouldn't be struggling with what we're struggling with. Or maybe you've come to them with something before and they're like, I mean, how is that the case? You know, like they just did not understand, or they completely shut you down right away. We're afraid we'll be judged by our spouse because everyone else judged us when we opened up to them. And as I was studying this, God pretty much, let me know that some of you have never been able to be vulnerable before. That every time you've tried to open up and become, to keep from saying vulnerable over and over, every time you've ever tried to open up and expose yourself to someone, you've been shot down, or you've been judged, or you've been looked at harshly, or it's been taken to someone else and they've, slammed your name in dirt, or they've put your dirty laundry all on the clothesline, like some people used to say, and they've just put you out there to be trampled on, or your business, so to speak, or your emotions rather. Or maybe we don't like to be vulnerable because we don't want to let our spouse down, who we feel may think we don't struggle with this particular thing anymore. Maybe you've come to your spouse about something and you've talked about getting better and how to get better, and then you find that you're still drowning in this thing. Whether it be something from your past or something that you're currently struggling with. Maybe you don't want to come to your spouse again because you feel like this isn't something that I should still be struggling with. This isn't something that should still be bothering me. Or maybe you're worried it will be too heavy for them to bear. Whether it's past trauma, mistakes, or childhood. So what happens, those are just some reasons as to why we run from being vulnerable. And I believe that a lot of you could agree with that. But what happens when we're already vulnerable in this area before, and here we are again battling silently? Again, we fear their response. It could be that we fear their response won't be the same. Like they will become intolerant with what it is we're bringing to them. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure we've dealt with that in some form, even outside of our marriage, to somehow relate to this, that we've brought something to someone and or you even maybe hear them talking about someone else, like, girl, they're still dealing with this same old mess. Or, honey, they're still talking about this stuff that happened to them way back when. Or girl, she still blames, or he still blames, or whatever the case may be. Or you might hear them say, they said they were going to get it together, but they ain't changed a bit, or whatever the case may be. I'm sure you've probably heard those things before from some kind of family member. So maybe we fear that in our husbands as well, that when we come to them about the same old thing, and maybe it's been going on for years. Maybe this is something you've been struggling with for years, and they know and they're aware, and you want to come to them again about it. Or you've come to them for the umpteenth time about it. And you fear, you know what, soon enough, their response, their compassion is going to wear out. Maybe that's why you run from being vulnerable. Or they may feel like we should be past this already, like we should have overcome by now, which is, similar to what we just said. I'm going to explain. Those are some reasons why we may run from vulnerability, but I'm going to explain the benefits, 5 benefits of vulnerability. And I also got this off of the website of a journalist who wrote this article. And when I tell you, from the moment I began reading, I completely agree with it. Or of course I would not share it with you, but and I've experienced this personally. 5 benefits of vulnerability. And I had written, I could not agree more, which I really couldn't. 1, it creates a closer bond between you and your spouse. I mean, the level of intimacy you get to sit in and soak in those moments is just it's incomparable to anything else. It definitely creates a closer bond between you and your spouse when you're able to be vulnerable and it turn out good, because that's not always the case. But 2, it breaks down emotional walls that you may have had up for years, wall that you may have up because of how you were raised. Maybe you feel like you could never share your feelings with your parents, or you were always shot down by your friends, or they always said you were being too much, or whatever the case may be. You've created walls. Maybe someone has broken your trust and abandoned you, or turned their back on you, or like we said earlier, maybe they gossiped about the very thing that you confided in them concerning. It will break down those emotional walls and those barriers that you have up. Number 3, it allows us to be honest. It allows us to be honest with ourselves out loud. And I believe that this is something that so many people struggle with as an individual. They really struggle with being honest with themselves. Like they have a problem, but they convince themselves that they don't have a problem. And obviously that is the first step to being vulnerable, even with yourself. Like, you have to be honest with yourself. And once you realize that a thing is what it is, you are then able to share it and be honest out loud with your spouse. I would say there's nothing more toxic, but it is toxic to operate in a marriage where you are dealing with so many things you are unaware of. And sometimes we're just oblivious. Sometimes we truly don't realize what it is we're facing, or even know what it is we need to be vulnerable about. But when you come, which is why it's important to get down to the root of those things, so that you can be a better person, so that your spouse can understand who you are deeply, and so you can get past it and not allow it to be a hindrance in your life anymore. But anyway, number 4 is it makes way for communication. And this is so good and so true. And obviously we've talked about it before numerous times. Well, one particular session we set aside for communication. I can't remember what it's called. If anybody can remember what that session is called. I'll have a prize for you, because I really don't like when I can't think of something. But I really just am curious as to what that session was called. We talked about communication and the 3 steps and all of that good stuff. But anyway, number 6, the 5 benefits of vulnerability. This is number 6. It embraces all authenticity. It embraces authenticity. It enables you to be genuine, because you're no longer going through the motions, and you're able to completely expose yourself and completely let out everything it is you feel. Look, this is how I feel raw. With it's not glamorous, and you know, this is in tears, and just this is just how I feel, and this is just how it is. And I know you may get upset about it, and I know it may bother you, or I know you may not take this well, or I know that you may not expect this from me, or you've never heard this before in our marriage, but this is what this is, and or this is me, and this is who I am, and I need to be vulnerable in this regard. It embraces authenticity. Personally, and I'm going to share a personal experience of a time in my life where I was vulnerable. A very recent experience actually. But I'm going to start with the beginning. I'm going to start with the very beginning. I'd come to my husband, and I don't know what really encouraged this session, and it could have been my recent experience. I just know that as I made it the Married Sisters Weekly Challenge, that it was just something that just would not let go in my mind. And so I just began to pray about it. But nonetheless, I remember sitting down with my husband, and I remember coming to him, without going into like strict details, for the purpose of needing to move on. I remember sitting down with him, and I just remember talking to him and telling him some thoughts that I was having, you know, about a situation. And I just remember feeling like, oh my God, like, he's probably not going to fully understand this, because I don't even fully understand this myself. And it's such a scary thing. It's a scary thing to even sit down and open up a can of beans. You don't know how they're gonna smell to your spouse. You don't know if, you know, it's just wow. But anyway, nonetheless, I sat down with him, and I was talking with him, and, you know, I just, you know what, I just let it all out, and I said, look, you know, I said, I've been really, you know, dealing with this thing internally, and I just need to let it out and let you know what it is I feel like I'm dealing with. Because it is not safe for me to just keep it in like this and know that you're probably seeing it externally and have no idea in regards to, you know, what it is. And I'm gonna say this too, that when you're dealing with something and you're not exposing yourself and you're not making known what it is, they go day to day. Sometimes they would try to pick you up or encourage you or tell you it's okay. Just if you're aware of what that thing is, and they have no idea because you have, or they have a sense of what it may be. Am I back, guys? Can y'all hear me now? I don't know what happened. We're gonna move on. But anyway, it doesn't give them enough clarity to where they can even be there for you. For one, the way you want them to be there for you. Two, the way they need to be there for you. And then you will often let out such frustration because there is just so much that is not in the clear, so much that is not in the air, and they're saying things and they want to help you, and it's like you're frustrated because it's not that, but you haven't yet reached a point where you can sit down and be honest with this person, and it's unhealthy. So it's unhealthy that you're being passive, and it's unhealthy that you're not even reaching a place where you can be honest about your emotions. And I get it, it is so hard, but I sat down and I told him, and at first he couldn't understand, you know. And a lot of times, if a person hasn't dealt with a thing, and I don't know, there are people where if they haven't dealt with it, they're not going to be as understanding. There are some people that are just naturally graceful. There are some people that even when they're graceful, they don't understand a whole lot of things. And if they feel like they can't grasp a situation and understand not even the concept, but if they can understand the why as to why this is, they will talk about it. They will, you know, become belligerent. They will tell you you're crazy. They will like disregard how you're feeling, and you just it's just, they just won't get it. So right away. So we have to make sure that we and our spouses are understanding even in the things we don't understand, especially when we've reached a place where we have chosen to become vulnerable with our spouse. But anyway, so I carried on my experience. I had become vulnerable with him, and for a long time he couldn't understand the ways that this thing was bothering me and how it was hindering me individually, and it grew to be frustrating. But I want you to know that one thing I learned about vulnerability, it is a journey. It is not just a journey for you, because exposing yourself sometimes doesn't just require you to do it one time, but it requires your spouse to be understanding, and it requires them to remain understanding for the time being that you may deal with this thing, for the time being that this thing may keep you bound, or for the time being that it may hinder you. And it could very well be years, it could very well be a season, it could very well, just be something that bothers you for a little while, and not long at all. But they have to be understanding, and they have to be willing to endure with you during that time after you've become vulnerable with them, which is what I said earlier. Sometimes when we deal with the thing for so long, we don't want to come back to our spouse because we feel like they will be weary with the fact that we're dealing with this, and they will get frustrated, and they will feel like we should have ever come by now, or whatever the case may be. Or some people some spouses may not be able to understand how something can follow you into your adult life, something that happened to you in your childhood. And can we just agree that men in general are not the most understanding creatures? I want to say personally that this is something that I've come to my husband with, that I've revisited with my husband. And when I tell you that, first of all, maturity, no matter what, no matter how grown we think we are and how mature we think we are, some maturity truly just takes time, and it is going to come with age. It is going to come as we get older, and as our minds expand, and it's just, and that's just how it's going to come. Some things truly just come with time, that some things aren't going to happen right away. And I had to endure a time where I felt like my spouse did not understand this thing that I was dealing with. And it wasn't that I was alone, so to speak. In a way, you may feel alone, which is where the Father comes in and becomes your confidence. It's where he comes in and he operates as your high tower, the place to which you run when you need something more than just someone. Because let me be honest and clear that our spouses are amazing, but they are finite, and there will be moments where their flesh may fail, and in those moments I want to have something infinite to run to, and so for a time period I had to do that. I had to break away to someone who understood even more to the extent I understood what I was dealing with. And over the course of time, God began to enlighten my husband, and also shift his mind, because he was one of those people who, if he didn't really understand a thing, he was just like, I don't understand how, he's very strong-minded and very he's very strong-minded and has a very stern perspective on things at times. And he has grown so much in becoming open-minded and becoming aware. And I remember coming to him about this thing once again, and I just remember him saying something back to me, and I'll never ever forget it. Like you're repeating yourself, you're saying is redundant, and it gets to be overwhelming to our spouse. And it's like, again, like you're dealing with this today too, or you're dealing with this for years later. But I just remember him saying, how was it? He said it. He said, I can't remember what the first portion of, I just remember him saying that I am aware of you. And that moved me, not so much because of how he said it, but because I knew it to be true. And I knew that I felt like I was understood, and it wasn't just a relief that I felt understood. It's a relief that I knew that it was a burden that I was not bearing alone. I knew that it was something that, even though he may not understand it to the extent that I'm dealing with it, or he may not understand it to the extent that I'm feeling it because it's me in it, I knew that he was in it with me. And I was able to begin to be vulnerable with him all the more because of that. And then there were moments where, and this is why I say vulnerability is a journey, because there will come a time where you don't have to sit down and pour out every detail of how you're feeling. You don't have to pour out every emotion. All you have to do is say a word, and they know the rest. They know the rest of the story. They finish the sentence with an embrace or a hug or a whisper in your ear, and you're able to simply carry on. And so recently we had this vulnerable experience where I just broke down about this thing. And he just held me as I just cried, and he just prayed for me. And like, when I tell you it was a release, it was an unimaginable release. And it was just, it just left me feeling so unheavy, because I knew that it was something that I wasn't bearing by myself. And I knew that he could see me like he has never seen me before. And even though he couldn't see, even if they can't see in detail what it is we're facing or what it is we're harboring within, because I feel like no matter how much we try to explain it to someone, they may not fully comprehend how it's bothering us, but they can very well be present in the thing with us. So you've heard about all the benefits of being vulnerable, and you've heard that it's that vulnerability is a journey, and that some things just come with growth, and if you have to revisit them, so be it. But you may say, all this is great, but how do we how do we get there? How do we reach a point where we can be vulnerable and trust that our spouse, even if he don't understand, he will be understanding, and that he will be there for us? And this is vice versa. This is allowing your spouse to be vulnerable too. And our men are not going to be as emotional as we are at all times. And I'm telling my husband a little bit, he hasn't always been a crier. When I met him, he said it had, been a little while since he cried, and there was very little that could move him other than his oldest girl at the time. And and so when I met him, I was getting ready to go back to college, and he just did not want to see me go. And I hope he's not gonna be mad at me about this. I'm pretty sure he won't. But if he is, it's too late. But anyway, I was getting ready to go back off to college, and he did not want to see me go. And, he was helping me, gather my things and load them up. And, we weren't even like together, Well, kind of. But anyway, so he didn't want to see me go, and he kind of, he shed a few tears, and I looked up and I was like, what are you doing? Well, I didn't say it like that, but I was like, oh my goodness, you crying right now. He's not watching, is he? Lord, I hope he's not watching. But anyway, but he was silent. So the thing that was bothering him, he didn't really speak on. A lot of times with our spouses, we're just going to simply see it in their demeanor. Our men are going to look burdened, and I have it written here. Let me read it to you. Sometimes our men they're just going to look downtrodden. They're going to look burdened, or they're going to seem quiet, or they're just going to seem distant, or not their usual selves. And that's how you will be able to know if your husband's not an extreme talker, when they're dealing with something and they're burdened with something, and they're also not going to be willingly vulnerable either. But I have learned how to not get my husband to talk. I've learned how to create a space for my husband to feel like he can. If your husband's walking through the house and he's distant, or he's upset, or he's a little, you know, on edge, or whatever the case may be, it could be something trivial that he dealt with that day, or it could be something that has been boggling his mind for weeks or months. And a lot of times men, they reach a point where it becomes many things all in one. It's almost never one thing that is bothering them, because they, you know, they feel like they carry so much, and they carry the family, and so they're always thinking about a ton of things. And men deal with, you know, anxieties that they don't really speak on a whole lot. And so they let these things like get cluttered in their minds, and it's like, oh boy. But anyway, and so I've learned how to create a space for them to be able to, for him to be able to open up and listen and truly, truly, truly become vulnerable. And, but anyway, so I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we can be vulnerable with our spouse, because you may say, well, yeah, this is great and this is nice and it seems like a journey I need to be on, but how do we do it? So I've read you the benefits, and I'm going to read you what the family therapist off of that website said. Again, if you want the website and want to read about vulnerability and all that such, you can. But the bulk of it is a lot of what I've said. But this here, I've put in steps on how we can become more vulnerable. And I'm going to read you what she said first. Vulnerability is very important. It is vital. It is essential in all healthy relationships, because it paves the way for deeper understanding, and it evokes the empathy, the compassion. It evokes compassion in our spouses that is necessary for a healthy long-term marriage. And so I would say the first thing to trying to ever even think about becoming vulnerable with your spouse is first is affirming whether or not each other's emotional well-being is a priority, if that's needed. And if it's not needed, great. If you feel like you need to reaffirm this, then reaffirm it. Like, you know, if you feel like your emotions isn't something that you visit a lot with your spouse, then it needs to be affirmed. It needs to be made a priority. And we also talked about priorities in marriage in one of our sessions as well. And I believe it was just simply called, it was like the P that I didn't mention and kind of kept secret. But it's called priorities. But nonetheless, if you find that you rarely open up to your spouse, or you're rarely talking to your spouse about your emotions and how you feel, those are not things we want to just bottle up and just keep on carrying, or allowing someone else to carry with us when at times it may very well be our husband we need to be releasing to. But again, I understand it's hard. That's why I'm going to help you. That's number one. Number two, the second step to becoming vulnerable is talking about the subject itself. And this is one I would like to visit all the more too, because you just never stop growing. You want to talk about the subject itself, like, hey babe, you know, I noticed that you're not really all that vulnerable with me. Maybe you see that they open up to somebody else more than they open up to you. Look, you don't have to open up to me the way you do with your guys or whatever, or your mom, or whatever the case may be. But hey, like, you know, I'm your right hand. Like, we're one, you know. So if you do see that they're being vulnerable with someone else and not with you, then that's an issue. But if they're just not vulnerable in general and have never reached a point where they see a need for it, then talk about the subject. Why is it that it's a struggle for you? Or how do you feel like you would be more comfortable opening up, or whatever the case may be, and talk about it with them, about you wanting to be vulnerable as well. Number three, and just vice versa, tell them how you feel most comfortable being vulnerable. You may try to come to me about a situation when, you know, the kids are running around, or when I'm at work, or hey, what did you want to talk to me about last night? You know, it's not gonna, you're not going to get the greatest result or outcome that day. I'm not saying you should never take a stab at it and mention something to them, because sometimes it's good to simply mention it and know that, and in hopes that they'll bring it up again, because it matters and it's important, your emotional well-being. Number three, naming the thing you'd like to discuss with your partner. Naming the thing you would like to discuss with your partner. Again, it could literally be anything at all. Just naming the thing you'd like to discuss, because sometimes that can spark interest as well. And then they nag you about it, or whatever the case may be. So then you set up a time, to simply be able to talk about it. Number 4, you want to make sure, these are in steps, by the way. You want to make sure, and 3 and 4 could be reversed if you don't already know this about your husband. Number 4, make sure your spouse is going to be open-minded to even the craziest or unbelievable things he's going to be told when you talk to him. Look, I know we talked about this before, but, I withheld this part. I didn't mention, we talked about it briefly, and I withheld where I felt deeply about this thing and how I felt about it, and this is it, because it could be like, I can't believe we're talking about this again, or I can't believe you would even think that way. Maybe you feel like you're going to get that response from something you're revisiting or something you're visiting for the first time. It doesn't matter. Make sure that they're going to be willing to be open-minded, and tell them in the beginning, look, let me forewarn you that this is going to require you to be open-minded and to just hear me. Because it definitely removes that hindrance in the initially. It just kind of gets the hindrance out the way to them not being willing to just simply hear you first. And then you have to get past the obstacle of, them showing compassion and just, simply having empathy for you, regardless of how crazy it is. Number 5, creating a setting where you can spark an intimate conversation. If it's once the kids are down, if it's once you're in from work and you're done for today and the chores are done. Don't be trying to talk to them when they're playing on a game, or or when they're in the middle of eating and it's been all day and they haven't eaten, or, hey babe, once dinner's over, I'd like to talk to you if you don't mind. They may be planning to get on the game. Sometimes you know your spouse, maybe they don't like to be caught off guard or whatever the case may be. So you create a setting and make it known that you want to have this conversation, an intimate conversation. One that you're going to have time for as well. Number 6, you want to be sensitive to when one another seems distant, quiet, bothered, burdened, or downcast, like I mentioned earlier. Be sensitive to that, because it may not just be us that needs to be vulnerable. It may be our spouse too. And I don't know if I'm talking to any men tonight. So, and I just want to put this disclaimer in there, if I may. Don't be shocked, or don't be so let down when if right away your spouse isn't compassionate. Don't make that a must. Because it could be something they've never heard before. It could be something that they would have never thought that they would hear from you, or whatever the case may be. Or they maybe just can't simply understand how you would feel that way, or why you're still feeling that way. So, don't look for compassion to happen right away, especially if being vulnerable with one another is something that you don't do often, and it's a journey that you're just beginning. Just be patient, and allow them to grow, and allow them to get to know you more, and just continue being vulnerable. It's just, nothing is going to help it like continuing to do it, continuing to be vulnerable. It's not meant to be a one-time thing ever, and it does not make us weak. Being vulnerable does not make us weak. It does not make us what's the word I'm thinking for? It does not make us help me, Holy Spirit. It doesn't make us it doesn't leave us open for to be destroyed. It can hurt if we don't get the right response, but just know, as you continue to do it, it will pay off in the end, and it will highly benefit your marriage. I was still trying to think of that word there, but nonetheless, that's all I have for being vulnerable. Let it get ugly. Let it get messy. You have to get those feelings out there. If you have to do it through a therapist with somebody sitting in the middle, so be it. Whatever you need to do to start this journey. It's not to say that you will need them to continue being vulnerable, because when you have a mediator there helping you let things out and, you know, making sure that they let her talk or let him talk or whatever, or let him be free to say how he wants to say it, you know, what he needs to say, and so be it. You know, if you feel like you haven't reached a place, or maybe you're so past this thing, or something between you two, personally, that you feel like you can't be vulnerable with, and you need someone there to help you, then so be it. And if you need any help from me at all, like, you guys don't be hesitant to let me know. We're getting ready to pray and close, but before we do, I've been trying to shorten the sessions just that way it could be to make it possible for you to remain during the session. And so for all those who are listening in tonight, I love you guys. If you need me, I'm a message away. And today I did a thing, and I created a group for married sisters. So if you're engaged and you're married and I did not invite you, no hard feelings. Like, please let me know you want to be a part of this, and I will send you an invite. I don't know if you can add yourself to the group. I'm not sure. But it's just a way for you to stay up to date on sessions, events. Like I said, we have our outing coming up that we're shooting out dates for. And just a way to simply be encouraged every day, because, you know, I'll be able to actually target everyone instead of tagging everyone on my personal page every time I want to say something merely. So nonetheless, I love you guys, and we're going to pray. If there are no prayer requests, I will go ahead and pray. If you'd like to be added to the group, let me know. If you would like to join the outing that is coming up within the next month or so, let me know about that too. If there is anything at all, anything on your hearts tonight, please feel free to reach out to me if you need. If you want the, let me know that too. That is all we're going to pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this night, God. I want to thank you for yet again, God, enabling me, God, to come to these women, Lord, and just pour onto them, God, the things that you have poured onto me in the past week, God, because this thing about vulnerability, God, it's been weighing on me, God, and I really feel in my spirit, God, we just withhold so much emotion, God, and we withhold so many thoughts, God, that come to their husbands, God, and know that they are someone that you have called for us to be able to rest upon, Jesus. They are the physicality on this side of earth, God, that you've called us to lean on, God, that shoulder, God, that should be present for us, God, no matter what the situation, God, no matter what it is, God, we come to them with, God, and vice versa, God, may we be open to how our spouses portray the things that are burdening them, and God, enable us to create an atmosphere, God, where they can just let themselves down and wear themselves down, if it's with words, God, or just simply, God, just allowing us, God, to be there for them until they're ready, Jesus. May we bear with them, Lord, and understand who our spouses are in those ways, God, so that we can both be vulnerable and have a healthy marriage, God. We love you, and we declare, God, that all things that are being suppressed in us tonight, God,